Okay, so in this video, we are going to go scene by scene and talk about what happened and kind of how we feel about it and ask some questions of you. And we hope that you participate in the comments and tell us your theories because that's why we're doing this, to have a discussion so that we can all have fun together. Anyway, I want to talk about the opening credits. I've always been obsessed with hidden messages in the opening credits. And so let's review the season finale from season 7 opening credits. The sword had a dragon on it. King's Landing still had the Baratheon flag as it has the entire series. Winterfell was reclaimed by Stark in Battle of the Bastards, so of course they've had their flag up ever since then. The wall was obviously intact, and on the sword, the stag was the central figure, and there was a lion next to it, and a bear, and an animal that I'm not really sure what it was. Maybe it was like a boar, but couldn't really make it out. So in this episode, it starts with the sword, and the picture on the sword is the dragon burning the wall down, obviously. And then it shows the wall, and there's a big hole in the wall, but a lot of the wall is still intact. However, where the hole is leads directly to Last Hearth. So there's that. And then right after that, it zooms in and shows Stark occupied Winterfell still, obviously the big location for this episode, probably the most important. Then it shows another sword with a man holding a dagger and a wolf's head in his hand. And then there's a lion watching, and in between there's like a corpse. I think it's a corpse, can't really tell, in the middle. For me, I think it kind of represented the beginning of the story and the Lannisters beheading Ned Stark, so I kind of think that's what that was, but maybe it's something else coming up. Don't really know. Also, the lion has a fish in its mouth, so not really sure what that's about. Then it zooms in on King's Landing, and King's Landing has changed, finally, and it zooms into underneath, and there's some type of vault with a dragon's mouth, clamping it shut to close the vault. I've heard a theory that there are dragon eggs under Winterfell, but this is under King's Landing, so not really sure what it's about, other than maybe there's wildfire under it, because before the Targaryens had placed the wildfire under the city. Could really be anything or nothing. Then it goes to the throne, and finally there is the Lannister sigil above the throne and no Baratheon flag, which I have so many thoughts on, because technically Cersei has the throne right now because she was married to Robert Baratheon and was still a Baratheon, which is why I thought the Baratheon flag still flew over it. Now there's a Lannister sigil. So maybe it's because of Cersei, maybe it's because the actual heir now is Lannister, maybe she is pregnant, but part of me thinks she's just not. Or maybe the symbol is about someone else who's the rightful king right now. Don't really know, really interested to see how that plays out. Then the last sword shows at least 4, possibly a 5th small one in the background, dragon, flying over other nondescript animals. So there's definitely 4, maybe 5 dragons on there, which obviously I think the 4th dragon represents Jon Snow, because we had Daenerys and her 2 brothers, and now I think Jon. And if the 5th smaller one was in fact a dragon and not a comet, which it also kind of looked like, then maybe Tyrion is also a Targaryen, as some have speculated. again, that wouldn't be my preference for how it goes, but we'll see. So please post in the comments and tell me what you think about the opening credits, especially if you nerd out on them like I do. I'm probably just really weird, but yeah, that would be awesome. Thanks. Okay, so the episode obviously starts with this little boy who's like running to get a better view of the march into Winterfell. He climbs trees, very reminiscent of the young Stark children. Kind of cute. Don't really know if his role is anything other than that. We'll see. The first main character we see is my girl Arya, and she looks a little bit smug in her first shot while she's watching. Then it shows Jon and Daenerys side by side, and Daenerys also looks a little bit smug, but also serious. And Jon looks like Jon always looks, just kind of blank-faced, but sweet, I feel like Jon doesn't really have a huge personality. Anyway, then it cuts back to Arya. She looks a little bit worried at first, but then she smiles as Jon is passing by, and it looks like she thinks about calling out to him, kind of hesitates, and then decides against it. She looked quite surprised, I think, to see the Hound, which is great, and she, of course, looked happy to see Gendry. I think the last time they saw each other was when Melisandre took him, and so, yeah. Anyway, and also speaking of Melisandre, she was absent, and I need her to show up because I need her to burn justice for Shireen. But anyway, then it cut to Tyrion and Varys making eunuch jokes, as typical per those characters. Then Missandei and Grey Worm looked serious, and Missandei looked a little bit unsure about everything. Then Jon warns Daenerys that Northerners don't trust outsiders, and she looks a little whatever until her dragons fly, and she looks happy and smug and like, well, get me now. I love Daenerys, but she had that look this episode. So then Arya, she looks at the dragons and she seems like amazed and excited about it, which kind of the opposite of Sansa. Sansa looked amazed as well, but then clearly resolved against them, which you kind of get a gist of later, but I'll let someone else talk about that. And then as they approach the entrance and enter Winterfell, Bran kind of has a blank look as Jon approaches, obviously showing that he doesn't really feel anything. He's no longer Bran. He's the three-eyed raven. So anyway, and Jon looks happy and relieved to see Bran. And then they have their exchange.
Okay, so after watching how Jon and Dany get back to King's Landing, I just have to say that these two girls need to get it together. They have to work together to beat the army of the undead, to beat the White Walkers, and just move on. Arya says that Sansa is the smartest person she knows, so this is the time that Sansa has to just play by the rules and follow along and then get into pushing Dany away. But she has to play right now the Game of Thrones and follow Dany.
Okay, so then everyone, they're having a family reunion, big city council meeting. All the people are there. Jon and Daenerys and Tyrion and Sansa are all up front, and Sansa's like, shit's about to go down, the wall fell down, told everybody come here, it's gonna be fine. And then poor little Umber boy comes up, and he's like, totally confused about like who to talk to, and he's like, sir, ma'am, queen, who is in charge here? And then Sansa's like, I'm in charge. Go get your horses, get your family, come back. So then, little John says something, and the guy from the Vale is like, yes, my lord. And then baby Leanna, the strongest 10-year-old in the whole world, is like, I don't know why you just said my lord, because he is not a lord anymore. He's not even nothing. And she's like, you said we got you. We said you were going to be king of the north. And then now you just came back with this lady. And I don't know this lady. I don't know who you are anymore. What is happening? And then he's like, I just, like, the guys are coming, and like, she's really important, and he's like, not really like convincing anyone. And then Tyrion stands up like he's gonna convince them. Like, no one cares what you have to say, like, at all. First of all, you're a Lannister, which nobody likes. So then he's all like, it's gonna be great, everything's great, blah blah blah, and then my family's coming to save us. And everyone's like, boo! No, we do not need the Lannister army. And then Sansa's like, yeah, and I especially do not want to feed them. I don't even know how to feed these dragons. I don't even know what dragons eat. And then Daenerys is like, they eat whatever they want. Which I thought was like so lame. Like, you just got here. These people don't know you. They just like know that you've like decided to be queen and like convinced Jon Snow somehow. Like, I feel like just a minute of like, hey, dragons kind of find their own things. Like, you don't really have to worry about it. Would have totally been a nicer thing to do. But whatever, Daenerys. Okay, so then Tyrion sees Sansa for the first time since their Joffrey's wedding, where Joffrey died, and he's like, what's up? I haven't seen you in a long time. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, that wedding was a little traumatizing. And she was like, I thought it was pretty hilarious, actually. And then he's like, I know you're like mad that the army's coming and you don't have to be afraid of Cersei. Which, like, she is not afraid of Cersei anymore. Like, she does not give a crap. So she was like, do you really think your sister's coming? Because she said she was coming. And he was like, well, yeah. Like, alluding to her pregnancy. And she's like, okay, you used to be smart and now you're dumb. Which is like the worst thing to say to him, because literally his like intelligence is his like most important quality. So that was a real burn.
Okay, so Jon and Arya. I've had to rewatch this scene a few times to make up my mind about it. I know it's the one a lot of people were really looking forward to as far as the reunions go, myself included. There were some warm, fuzzy feelings that a lot of people were talking about, but there was also a very serious undertone, I felt. She arrived and they hugged and she smiled and it was happy, and he asked where she'd been, and it was fine. He noticed that she still had a needle and she pulled it out and showed him, and then he showed her his sword and she held it and said Valyrian steel, and he said, yeah, jealous, and she just said, too heavy for me. She didn't bother to show him her dagger though. It was on her, so it wasn't like hidden, but she didn't mention having it, and I think maybe she's not fully trusting of Jon right now. So I guess we'll kind of see where that goes. He also slighted Sansa a little bit, and she got real serious real fast and made it clear that she is on her sister's side. She said Sansa's the smartest person she's ever met, and that she is defending her family. And Jon says it's his family too. And she says, don't forget that. I think it was a warning, but Jon is a Stark. He's a Targaryen, but he's a Stark too. And he's always been loyal to that family. I don't think anything's going to change, but I think that Arya is a little bit like worried about Daenerys, worried about what's going on there, and rightfully so. Let me know how you felt about it.
Oh my god, this whole part was like so obnoxious to me. Like, Qyburn's like, I have bad news. The White Walkers broke through the wall. And she's like, good. Like, okay, well, you're gonna die. So, cool. And then, so then you look, and the Iron Fleet's coming back with a bunch of other ships. And then she talks to this hot new Golden Compass dude, or whatever they're called. And then she's like, did you bring your elephants, though? Which is a really weird thing to be obsessed with. And he's like, elephants can't go on boats, lady. And she's like, ugh, whatever, fine. And then, so then he leaves, and then Euron's all like, so I brought you all this stuff. Are we gonna like hang? Like the most obnoxious Tinder date ever. And then she's like, no, I told you after the war. And he's like, but the war's gonna be like really long. I need to get laid now. And then she does this like badass quote, like, if you want a whore, hire one. If you want a queen, you have to earn it. And then he's like, okay, but like for real, like how long is it gonna take? And she's like, you're such a jackass. And then she like walks away, and then she's all like, and he's like, why would you say this badass quote and then turn around and still like do it with the dude? Like that is totally, Cersei. Like, what? Anyways, so he's pretty pumped.
Okay, so when we first see Bronn, he is having some fun with some whores, which is, you know, typical Bronn. Bronn's gonna Bronn, but whatever. Then Qyburn comes in, which Bronn doesn't look too excited about, and kicks the girls out, and mentions to Bronn that Cersei knows that her brothers have made Bronn some promises that they haven't kept, and that she wants to rectify their mistakes. To which Bronn replies that Cersei has broken plenty of promises that she's also made to him, and doesn't really believe this. Qyburn goes on to tell Bronn that there are chests of gold and a carriage waiting for him outside, and gives him a crossbow, insinuating that Cersei wants him to kill Jaime and Tyrion. I definitely don't think this is on Cersei's orders. I think Qyburn is up to something. Qyburn has been the most underrated snake in the grass, I think, for a while now. He's the one who orchestrated Grand Maester Pycelle's killing with the little birds, and he has done what he has to do to kill people that are close to Cersei. I think Qyburn is in a very good place right now. He's hand to the queen, and I think that he knows if Tyrion and Jaime comes back, that his position is in jeopardy, because she can name either one of them as her hand. And I think that Tyrion did make some kind of deal with Cersei at the end of season 7, and that she wouldn't even want him killed, and especially Jaime. She knows Jaime's gone, but that it's because he's afraid of the White Walkers and wants to protect the living, not because he's against her. So I think at this point she's kind of in a trusting place of them as far as keeping her position safe. I think she'd probably prefer them by her side, but I think she also doesn't feel threatened by them. So definitely don't think it's on her orders. Qyburn is a snake. Don't like him. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments.
Okay, so then they cut to Cersei and Euron, and they've just like done whatever, and then she's like, ugh, I'm still mad about these elephants. And okay, this is of note. She's drinking wine, which is weird because supposedly she's pregnant, which I guess like in Europe they probably like don't care as much about that stuff. But somebody said that they thought that she wasn't drinking wine before when she said she was pregnant. So that's of note to me. Anyway, then worst Tinder date ever continues, and he's like, but was I really good though? And she was like, I mean, yeah, better than my lame husband that I murdered. And he's like, okay, but like, better than your brother. And she's like, we are not talking about that. And then she's like, you're so lame. And he's like, but did I please you? Oh my God. Seriously. Anyway, so then she's like, whatever, dude. I need to be alone. Which I thought was pretty cool. She was like, that was great. You need to go. And then he's like, I'm going to put a baby in you. And then she kind of looks like, so I guess it's like she's trying to, like, the whole point of her doing it with him was so that if she does get pregnant, no one's like, cool incest baby lady. Like, so, but I didn't think she was actually pregnant. Like, I think she's faking it. But now this whole urine thing, like, why else would she hook up with him? He's literally the worst. Oh, also, well, whatever. Anyway, so then, oh yeah, and then at the end, she's like, you know, close up of just her face, like being like, oh. And some people said that they thought that she was crying. It didn't seem like she was crying to me. I don't know. What did y'all think?
Now, I think Yara's rescue was very important because it shows growth on behalf of Theon. And I think that Yara will turn back and join Theon in Winterfell to fight for the Starks and for everybody else. But they will both die in the end, definitely.
So, Davos, Tyrion, and Varys walking through the streets of Winterfell, having that conversation that Davos starts about loyalty. And at first it would appear that Davos is referring to the reception Daenerys got from the Northerners and how they don't really trust outsiders. But I think it could be some foreshadowing that there's a betrayal afoot. It cuts to Dany and Jon being all loved up and stuff. I do not ship this. I hate it. The way they're acting is just... but I think Varys and Tyrion are going to kind of feel not needed, and they may be trying to stir up some bad feelings toward her. And then when Varys says nothing lasts forever, it's really creepy. He could be talking about their lives, that relationship, loyalty, you know. So we'll see.
So Daenerys is talking to Jon, and he's like, she's like, your sister doesn't like me, and she needs to respect me, which is the worst way to introduce yourself to your new incestual boyfriend's family. I'm just saying. Anyways, but, okay, you know when you're, like, a single mom, and you're like, okay, I know you met my kids, but, like, in order for this to work, we really need to, like, hang out and see if you guys can hang out, and I want to see, like, what you're like with my kids. Well, that's what she did with Jon and the dragons. So they went and they hung out with the dragons, who apparently are not having the best time in Winterfell. They're a little cold, not eating. And then they went on this full, like, I can show you the world, never-ending story, dragon ride. And Jon, like, was on the dragon, and it was like the Judge Roy scream, and it was like, and he was like, oh God, I'm gonna die. And then it was fine. And then they landed, and then they're like making out and stuff, and the dragons are like looking at like you're making out with her mom, this is weird. And then, but also I wonder if they're like, you know you're related, right? Like, we can smell it on you that you are like a Targaryen, and this is kind of weird. And so maybe that's why he was like, but anyways, that's maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
So, Arya and the Hound's reunion. I don't have a lot to say about it. It was cool. I was hoping it would happen. Her look of shock when she saw him was kind of everything. But their interaction was very like them and cool. And Arya and Gendry, she looked super excited when she saw him. There's a ton of chemistry. She's been smiling a lot this episode, which is cool. If you think back to episode 1, where Ned and Robert are in the crypts of Winterfell talking about how Robert wants to be bound by blood to the Stark family. He said, I have a son and you have a daughter. Maybe he was talking about the wrong two. He could be talking about, maybe, he didn't know about Gendry, I guess, but that statement would kind of be a cool foreshadowing moment. So now we have to talk about the weapon that Arya wants Gendry to make. She specifically wants dragon glass. If you look at the image, it says dragon glass and it's pointing to it, and it's like a screw detachable spear or something. So earlier in the episode we find out that the Night King has Viserion. So what if Arya has her sights set on killing the Night King or Viserion? So if you think back to this episode, Bronn specifically says, "I'm the only man that's ever shot a dragon or wounded a dragon or one of these," or he says something like that. So what if Arya is the one to kill zombie Viserion?
Okay, so Jon and Sansa start arguing because House Glover decides that they're not going to support them and send them troops to go fight the White Walkers. And Jon's frustrated and says that they promised to stand behind House Stark. And Sansa says no, they promised to stand behind Jon Snow, the king in the north. And Jon is upset that Sansa is worrying about who holds what title and says that without Daenerys, they don't have a chance, and asks if she has any faith in him. And Sansa says, "You know I do." And Jon assures her that Dany is not her father, not the Mad King, and she will make a good queen. And Sansa says, well, she's much prettier too, and then asks if Jon bent the knee to save the North or because he's in love with Daenerys. So Sansa's smart. She knows what's up. I guess we'll see what happens with those two. I still have a feeling that Sansa will end up queen in the North, if not queen of it all. We'll see how it goes. Okay, we get almost to the end of the episode when we finally see my man, Jorah. Hate all you want, it's okay. Anyway, he and Dany go to find Sam so that Dany can thank Sam for curing Jorah of the grayscale. And Sam is like flustered to see her and happy and pleasant and gracious. And she says, she has to reward him, and he asks for a pardon for borrowing some books from his family's citadel, at which point she realizes his family she had burnt to a crisp. His father was Randall Tarley, and she says, not Randall Tarley, and he's like, yeah, and then realizes that she had him killed. And, he's obviously upset and holding back tears, but he's like, at least it's okay. At least my brother's the Lord now, and I can go home. And he tries to find some positive, and then she just spills on him, well, your brother was next to him. It was the right thing to do, but the way that it came out was just so blunt. And I don't know, I feel like it could have been handled a little bit better. But Dany has always just been straight and to the point, and it's what I love about her, but it could also be her downfall. I think this scene was probably the most important scene in the whole episode because I think Sam's input for Jon and his read on people is just, really important. And Sam is always positive and sees the good. And I think this is the point for him where he's not so happy about Dany. He doesn't trust her at this point. He's crying. He has to leave. He leaves and he goes to talk to Bran. And I think for Dany, this is her possibly biggest moment. It's either going to be the moment that she realizes she's got to rule in a different, more merciful way, or that things are going to happen. Things aren't going to go her way. Especially now that she's with Jon, if he's going to condone anything, she's got to change. So this moment for Dany is huge. And personally, I want her on the Iron Throne. They've been building her up since day one. She is a strong female character. She's been who I'm pulling for. I don't know if she's going to get it, but I hope that she can realize that she's got to deal with some things in a more merciful way. So I guess we will see what happens. Let me know what you thought.
Now, when Bran tells Sam that he's the one who has to tell John who his real parents are, it's because Sam is his brother from the Night's Watch, and I mean, Bran is not really his real brother, so it must be Sam to do it. And finally, the moment we've all been waiting for, when John finds out who his real parents are. And I think, yeah, Sam had to be the one to tell him because he's super brave, he's super smart, and he's his real brother from the Night's Watch. I don't think it's gonna really matter to John who his parents are, but it will create some kind of conflict on how ruthless Danny can be. So maybe he'll start doubting her or distrusting her. We'll figure it out later.
Tormund and Beric show up at the last hearth, which is where Ned Umber said he was going to go to get more stuff. And you can tell something's happened, which we can only assume the White Walkers have been through there and turned everyone into whites. They come in and you see Ned Umber on the wall, and he wakes up, and when Beric stabs him, he ignites, and it ignites that symbol, which I believe that symbol is the Night King symbol. It's been recurring throughout the show, and if you remember back in the episode where the Night King is created by the Children of the Forest, it shows that aerial image of the weirwood tree with the spiral coming out of it. And so I think that's just kind of a symbol of the Night King's power. In the books, Melisandre talks about how she wants to burn the weirwood trees and stuff, and so I think Ned Umber and the symbol igniting is maybe a clue that the weirwood trees are going to have to be burned.
Okay, so last scene of the whole show is a cloaked figure riding into Winterfell. He arrives, takes off his hood. We see that it's Jaime Lannister. He is looking around, and the first person he makes eye contact with, Bran in a wheelchair. Jaime at first just looks at him, and I don't think he really knew who it was. And then I think it dawned on him, and he just looked like, oh, no, okay. I think Bran, man, we don't even know what he's thinking at this point. He looked like, what the hell, but also blank, because Bran always looks blank, and, like, is Bran so far removed from Bran that it doesn't matter? Like, is he so far into being the three-eyed raven that the fact that Jaime pushed him out of the window, which pretty much led him to the whole path that he went on, was because of Jaime Lannister in season 1, episode 1. And here we see in the final season, episode 1, the two are reunited for the first time. It's kind of awkward, but is it? Does Bran even care? I think Jaime feels remorseful, like there's going to be something there, because I think since the beginning, Jaime's changed, maybe more than any character. He's become remorseful and kind, and, I think he probably feels really bad for what he did to Bran, and has realized who his sister is and that she was not worth any of this. But I guess we will see how it goes. It'll be really interesting. So that concludes this for us, and we hope you have enjoyed hearing our opinions and that you will discuss what you think below and give us your feedback. And this is our first long in-depth thing. Let us know what you want to see more of, what you don't want to see so much of, and leave questions, comments, anything. Let us know, and we'll see you next week.